Hello, and welcome back to day 10 of 100 Days of Clarity. If you made it this far, pat yourself on the back. You are now 10% through the course here. And again, the goal of the course is to take you from absolutely zero programming to getting you hired for a freelancing gig at the very least. And so today's actually a really, really cool day because we are again going to make a leap in our knowledge of clarity here. And today I actually want to start with a little bit and talk about architecture. And so, as you can imagine, every smart contract, right, has, as you can see now, functions and data types within it. And as you saw, parameters allow us to use data types in a kind of interesting way where we create almost like temporary variables, right? We can call the variable num, like we did in that last example, and then we access that number within the function by referring to the parameter name of num. There in Clarity, there is a way of writing not just variables for specific functions, but variables that will maintain throughout the entire contract. And there's two different types of, contract. Well, there's like four different types of contract-wide ways of saving data. One of them, the two that we're going to review today, are called constants. And as the name implies, constants are, constant. And once they're defined in the contract, they never changed. And the second is going to be called just a variable. And as the name suggests, that is going to be significantly more useful and accessible. And it's what a lot of contracts use to keep track of data, change data, let users update it, etc. So constants and variables, and with those two, we're going to drastically jump in our knowledge of clarity. So again, without, not just talking about it, but doing it, let's go ahead and open up our IDE, open up our terminal, Clarity Basics Day 2, and let's jump into it. So enter as usual comment. Today we're doing day 10, and we are covering constants and intro to variables. Or it should have been intro to variables and constants, but it is what it is. Okay. Again, very, very simple. Constants, once they're defined, they stay exactly the same and are never changed. And so what can be put in a constant? Well, basically any data type that exists. So let's go ahead and create, define constant for a number. So we're going to call this, favorite number. And you can assign it whatever you want. Let's assign it 10. And again, that's all you need to do to define a constant. Let's go ahead and call another one, just define constant favorite string. And here we're just going to call it high. And again, the same way we define constants is the same way you use any other function in Clarity. Open parentheses, function name to the left, which here it's define constant. Then the name of the constant that you're going to use to refer to it, and then the value of the constant. Okay, cool. So those two are fairly simple. Let's just go ahead and write a define read-only function. And just call it show constant. We're not going to put anything in the parameters, so just go to the body, press enter, space. Okay, and here what we're going to do is we're going to grab both different constants so you can see how they're accessed. So in the body, right now, just write in fav num, which again is referring to that constant that we defined a couple lines above. And as you can see, Clarity doesn't give us any errors, so we can run this function. Let's go back to our terminal, Clarinet console, go up to make sure we're in the right contract, .clarity basics 2. And we're just going to call this function show constant. Again, we're providing in the body just the name fav num, which we assign as a constant of u10, 2 lines above. So this function should return u10. And indeed it does. Let's go ahead and go back to this to our contract and change from fav_num to fav_string. Go back here, rerun the environment again, and rerun show constant, and you get high. Cool. So how we work with constants is pretty straightforward. And again, you can immediately use the constant name as a replacement for U10 to do operations. So for example, if instead of show constant, let's call this show constant double. And within the body, all we're going to do is a multiplication function where we're going to multiply fav_num, the assigned constant, times 2. And that's it. Go back to our terminal and run show constant double. And as you can see, it indeed returned 20 with no problem. And again, we didn't even have to do U10 times U2. We ended up passing the constant of fav_num, and Claire already knew to grab that U10 value. Okay, and so constants are pretty straightforward. So now we're going to go ahead and go into variables. And as the name implies, constants once created, constant cannot be changed. Variables, once defined, can absolutely be updated. And variables, whenever you want to work with them, they have, in addition to the define function, which we'll go over, there are two main functions. And again, if you're familiar with programming, these functions are universal when we're working with any variables. There's a function var-get, which as the name implies is how you get a variable. And then there's the name var-set. As the name implies, this is how you set a variable. And so for the rest of this lesson, we're just going to go ahead and test out both of those different ways of working with variables. So let's go back to our contract. And one additional thing here, typically when you're either defining the constants or the variables or the maps, which is something we'll get into later, you want to do it at the top of the contract. You want to do them at the top of the contract. So instead of doing instead of defining the next variable underneath our functions, I'm going to make a space and define them under constants. So whenever we want to define a variable, instead of define constant, you type in define-data-var. And that stands for define data variable. If we press tab here, we can see that it requires 3 inputs, or 3 arguments. One is the name. The second is the type, which again, data types we've talked about now at length. Principals, booleans, numbers, strings, etc. And then the initial value. And again, the point of variables is that you can change them. So setting the initial value is no guarantee it'll stay that value. If you need that guarantee, use constants. And so let's go ahead and call this this first one fav_var. And we know, since this is going to be a number, it's going to be a uint. And we want to set a variable. We want to set the initial variable here. Let's go ahead and call this U10. So that it has the same variable as the constant. Okay. And so first, actually, let's change it to a U11 so we can see a distinction. First, let's just show a simple function that allows us to show var. Or show that fav_num variable. So define read only. Show favorite num var. Body enter indent. And then here, really simply, we're going to use the var_get function. So as you can see here, when we tab in, all var_get requires is a single input, which is the variable you're trying to get. In this case, fav_num var. And that's it. As you can see, it clearly doesn't give us any errors. We know this is going to work. Go back and spin up our environment again, refresh the contract, and call show fav_num var. And we indeed get 11. Just like constants can be used in variables, just like constants can be used in operators and in functions, variables can also be used anywhere in the contract. So for example, let's now do show var double. And again, for the body now, what we're going to do is we're still going to do multiply u2, except for our second value, we're going to, instead of just doing fav num or fav num var, we're going to do open parentheses var get again, because again, we need to get that variable first. Var get fav num var. If we save, we see no errors. We know this is going to work. And just to confirm that it does, we go back, clear our net console, show var double. And indeed, we get 22. Okay, and I'm just going to do one more function using define-var that shows you how it works with strings as well. And then we're going to go ahead and call it a day, because tomorrow we're going to cover how to var set or how to update a variable. But that requires learning one extra data type that we haven't covered yet. So let's go ahead and make a variable for our favorite string. Let's just change this to name, your name. Type, again, this is tricky, and I want to let you know this is, getting used to defining strings this way is a little bit awkward and it takes time. So don't worry if you're not frustrated. Again, when you define a string, you can't just define, string ASCII or string UTF-8. You also need to define the maximum length that string can have. So here, again, we don't like working with UTF-8. We almost always do ASCII, so we're going to do string ASCII. And then again, let's just give it a length of 24. No particular reason. And then just write in your name here. And then we're going to write a hello function where it says your name. So define read only, say hi, and before we do that, for your name, let's just add an extra space, because we know we're going to concat the hi and the your name, and so we need to make sure there's a space there. So we go back to body, enter, and here again we know we want to concat. We've done concat. You concat two different strings. Let's provide, the first string we want it to be fav string, which we know is the words hi. And we know the second string we want it to be your name, but it's a variable, so we can't just write in your name. We need to var get. So var get your name. And if you press save, we see Clarity doesn't give us an error. That means we're in luck. If we run say hi, we see that it does return a concatenation of our constant hi and our variable that we got, which was our name or whatever name you put in. And with that, again, we're nearing the 15-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Super exciting stuff, as we're now expanding our repertoire of how we're going to write full-length Clarity smart contracts. And yeah, today we reviewed constants and variables. We reviewed how to define constants, and we reviewed not just how to define variables, but also how you can access those variables at any other time in the contract. Tomorrow, we're going to cover a very, very important follow-up to that, which is, of course, how do you update or how do you set variables? And for that, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.